Today we're going to take a look at Neptunia and Friends for iOS. Is this going to be the start of mobile game reviews on this channel? No, of course not. It's a Nep thing, so I have to talk about it. This is an update to an earlier app called Hyperdimension Neptunia, the app. Both apps allow you to interact with the goddesses, and there's an alarm clock. Neptunia and Friends has more characters and features, whereas the original only had Neptune and Noir. The old app did have a camera mode that the new one doesn't. Neptunia and Friends is available for free on iOS. If you only have Android devices, then you're out of luck. I'm using an Android phone myself at the moment, but because restricting myself to only one platform is not how I roll, I've got a couple of iOS devices we can test the new Neptunia app on. An iPhone 5S and an iPad Air, which I got in a clearance sale when Target fled the country. Most footage is from the iPad, just so you know. It's interesting how the app needs to download 150-ish megabytes of something after I already just downloaded the app, so that's kind of annoying already. The goddesses look exactly like they do in the cutscenes of the games, which is excellent. I guess it uses the same sort of engine. You can choose to interact with Neptune, Noir, Blonde, and Vert. There's also Purple Heart as well, but you have to buy her. Their eyes follow your finger if you drag it across the screen, and touching and poking usually gets you some sort of response. I haven't really noticed a pattern, it seems kind of random. At least I didn't think it matters where I touch them. That was an interesting sentence.
Hey, I think you're touching me too much.
You'll also get different responses when shaking your device around. Occasionally, you'll get asked questions, or you get to ask goddesses a question yourself.
I can't complain about anything right now. It's thanks to you that life has been so interesting lately.
You can also change their clothing and the background. The application may be free, but most of the clothing in Purple Heart costs money. Each goddess has a multitude of costumes and voice sets. It can really add up. In fact, if you were to buy everything, the total cost would be almost $280 Canadian. You'll have to figure out what that is in your own currency. But that should be easy enough since you're on the internet. I decided to get Purple Heart and some of her dialogue, so just to see what it's like. Every time you buy something, the application has to download it. It's usually not that much, maybe a few megabytes. Speaking of buying things, if you did have the old app, you can restore your purchased content by just clicking the restore button. They won't feature any of the new features, but still, it's nice to know that the update didn't remove them anyways. If you decide not to pay for the various voice sets, you'll probably be disappointed with the amount of dialogue. It gets repetitive quickly, but it's still entertaining at first going through all the goddesses to see what they have to say. Speaking of repetitive, that's what I would describe the process of raising the love gauge. There's a few ways to do it, but the quickest way is to just keep tapping and skipping over and over again. You'll randomly be gifted slices of cake, which you can then just re-gift back to them in order to raise the love gauge. Just like in real life. You can also play some sort of card game, but honestly I wasn't really interested in that. Same thing with the fortunes. But I guess the point is interacting with the girls, not the mini-games themselves, really. Once your goddess of choice has a love gauge of at least in the red, because color is a unit of measurement, you can go into love mode. You can pet her on the head until the timer runs out. You have to make sure to vary it up by changing your speed and occasionally stopping, or else she'll start disliking it. If your performance is satisfactory, you'll get some sort of special event, which I presume is a kiss if I read the official literature correctly. I wasn't good enough apparently. Perhaps I would have done better if this was Nep gear. The gauge depletes to a very low level after love mode, meaning you'll have to go through that entire, in my opinion, annoying process again. At least it's not right back down at 0. There's a few alarms you can set as well. One wake-up alarm, an alarm to go to work, and a sleep reminder. Each goddess has something different to say, of course, but for some reason I had a lot of trouble when it comes to screen recording the alarms. I can't get them to work when recording, so I've got no footage of that at all. A bit of a bummer. One interesting thing is that the work reminder even gives you reminders of what to take with you, which you can customize from a pre-existing list. You can also add your own, but of course that won't be verbalized, but just written in text. There's still a few things worth mentioning. If you have the wake-up alarm set for 3 days in a row, the cake you get each day when the alarm rings will get bigger each day, with the third day being the biggest. Gifting bigger and better cakes raises the meter more quickly. There's a bit of a difference between the iPhone/iPod Touch/iPad versions. Not in content, but in terms of the user interface. Since the iPhone is more vertical, you'll notice you can see more when scrolling through some of the options. The iPad version basically only allows you to see one row at a time. That's because the iPad uses a 4x3 screen, just like a real TV. I also noticed that on the iPad, the buttons look a bit pixelated, so obviously that's more optimized for an iPhone, it seems. That being said, I don't have any of the newer iPhones to test it with, just this 5S. Neptunia is probably one of those rare occasions where the dub is generally preferred by most people, me included. But I still find it a bit sad to not see a Japanese voice option. There are people who prefer it after all, so it would have been nice to include an option at least. Also, these question marks here make you think that there are more unlockable characters. Have I just not played enough, or are they just placeholders? I think the Japanese version of the app has more characters, including ones from other franchises. Honestly, I think Neptunia and Friends would have felt more complete if the other goddesses had HDD forms too, at the very least. And how about the CPU candidates? I'd like Nepgear, please, thanks. But then again, that would just mean there's more DLC to buy. Anyway, that's Neptunia and Friends. I guess it's fun to interact with the goddesses a little bit, but honestly, it's overall just a bit of a novelty in my opinion. It's annoying that you have to buy stuff just to have the goddesses say something interesting or lovey-dovey. It just reminds me why I stay away from phone games in general. I felt dirty just buying Purple Heart and one of those voice sets. I could have used that money for many more useful things in my life. I could have washed my car or something. Anyway, I'm obviously not really into it, but I know some people are. Let me know your opinion if you've tried Neptunia and Friends. Remember to like the video, subscribe for more videos that aren't about phone apps, Patreon, Twitch, Discord, and also Twitter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.